So yes, a budget deal has been reached, but lawmakers still have to present and then vote to pass the state budget. The deadline is 1 week away. So when will they get a final copy? And how transparent has the process been this year? Here to give us some analysis is our budget and finance writer, John Reitmeyer. John, great to see you. We've heard a whole lot about transparency in the budgeting process since Governor Sherrill took office. She said that would be a big priority for her. We are now 1 week away from the deadline where the state has to pass this budget. As someone who's been covering the process for years, do you see anything different in terms of the process this year?
It's great to be with you, Joanna. And at this point, this is playing out largely the way it has the last, several years, going back, really about a decade in New Jersey. The lawmakers like to take this down to the wire. And I think when you're about a week away from the deadline, when you're going to spend more than $60 billion in taxpayer resources, that this really is, coming down to the wire. So there are still days in this process that will play out, and changes that may be made to what the governor has proposed. So that will be the real test on transparency. There were calls earlier this year to have this budget process already done by now. There have been lawmakers from both sides of the partisan divide calling for a timeline that would see a spending bill in place by, say, June 15th. Well, clearly we've missed that deadline. And if you look around at other states that have a July to June fiscal year, many have already adopted their budgets. Rhode Island, Illinois, Arizona, you can go around the country. New Jersey does it very late. And as you noted, the trade-off for doing it this way means that there's very little time for people to see what makes it into the final spending bill while the lawmakers are still, considering the bill.
How big is this spending bill? What do lawmakers have to comb through in that short amount of time?
Yeah, and I think two things can be true at the same time. So a lot of what will probably be the final spending bill has been out for months, and it will be based off of a template that the governor put forward starting in March, and then more detail came out a few weeks later. It's some of the changes on the margins that can be significant changes that get added or tweaked at the last minute. One example is funding for the Stay NJ program. It's a property tax relief program that benefits hundreds of thousands of senior homeowners in New Jersey. The governor has proposed significant changes to that program that would alter both who can qualify for benefits and what the size of benefits will be for many seniors. So while that's a fraction of total spending, that's a really important issue that remains unresolved. And eventually, when it is resolved, word will have to get spread to all of the seniors who rely on this program to help defray their high property tax bills. These are the types of things that when this process plays out, while much of the budget will likely remain the same from what the governor proposed, there are significant changes, even if the dollar amount is a fraction of total spending, that do impact real people in New Jersey. And there was a recent poll that showed that a majority of New Jersey voters do not like last minute changes to the budget. So it's not just, say, good government groups and reporters who complain about this.
Let me just quickly on that, you mentioned legislators who passed who introduced bills to change the timing. Those all would have had to be introduced in the assembly. They didn't happen. It also happens to be the assembly speaker who's pushing for more with Stay NJ. Does the legislature not have much ambition here or motivation to make those changes?
So one thing to note, because there's often a lot of confusion, the state constitution requires bills that raise revenue to originate in the assembly. So that allows lawmakers in the Senate or the assembly, if they want to propose changes to the budgeting process, that's kind of fair game. And we did see members of both party, and we saw sign on from both houses for changes to the budgeting process. Now, some of this is spelled out in the state constitution, so you can't pass laws that change the notion that the budget should be balanced, the notion that the governor has what's called the line item veto. At the end of the process, she gets to remove items in the final bill that makes it out of both houses of the legislature that she doesn't agree with, while not vetoing the full spending bill itself. So there are parts of this process are constitutionally mandated, but there are other ways that changes to the process could be made, and they've been discussed now by some lawmakers, but leadership, in this case, the majority Democrats who are running both the Assembly and Senate, dictating what bills make it to the floor for votes. Leadership has clearly not made those types of changes a priority.
Quickly, we have the state worker, I should say the public worker pension fund has been invested in Geo Group and Palantir, two companies that contract with the federal government and participate with ICE. There have been calls for divestment. Where has Treasury landed in terms of whether or not it will divest?
Well, the big thing is, so the public worker pension fund that you mentioned is an $85 billion fund that covers the retirements of hundreds of thousands of current and retired workers in New Jersey. The fund has an immense amount of investments. And in some cases, when we look at the sheets of all the companies, we do find companies that are doing things that become newsworthy. And in this case, the investments in companies that are doing business with the federal government, and specifically Homeland Security as part of the immigration crackdown, have drawn the attention of both advocates and lawmakers in New Jersey. What we learned recently is the Division of Investment within Treasury has sold a stake in the company known as Geo Group, which has become noteworthy because it operates the Delaney Hall facility in Newark. And then there's also an investment in a technology firm called Palantir. Last we checked, that was about $115 million. So a small drop in an $85 billion fund. Still,
just a couple seconds left, John. Where did we end up there?
We still own, the pension fund itself still owns the Palantir stake, although lawmakers are trying to pressure through law for divestment.
And of course, there was a bill introduced that would require divestment when a company infringes on data privacy to determine a person's immigration status. That bill still needs to move through the legislature, though, yes?
It's been introduced and it has yet to receive a hearing in either the Assembly or Senate, so it remains pending.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. John Reitmeyer, budget and finance writer for us. Thank you.
You're welcome.